Donald Trump has changed a retired teacher's life. It is a crisp December morning in New York City, an encounter that will change lives. Donald Trump, wearing his signature navy suit and bright red tie, stepped out of Trump Tower. He was on his way to a board meeting but decided to take a short detour through Central Park. The air was filled with the chatter of tourists, the jingling of bells from horse-drawn carriages, and the distant sound of a saxophone playing a jazzy rendition of Silent Night. As he strolled past the park's iconic fountain, something caught his eye. Sitting on a weathered bench was an elderly woman, her gray hair tucked under a knit hat, her frail hands clutching a stack of faded papers. She looked up briefly, her face lined with years of experience and struggle. Trump paused, his instincts telling him there was a story here. "Good morning, ma'am," he said, his deep voice cutting through the chilly air. "Mind if I sit?" The woman looked up, startled. "Oh, sure," she replied hesitantly, shifting to make room. Trump lowered himself onto the bench, glancing at the papers in her hands. "What's that you've got there?" She smiled faintly, holding them up. "Old lesson plans. I used to be a teacher." "A teacher?" Trump asked, genuinely intrigued. "What did you teach?" "History," she said, her voice soft but steady. 35 years in the New York public school system. Loved every minute of it. But, well, retirement hasn't been quite what I expected." Trump frowned, his brow furrowing. "What do you mean?" The woman hesitated, clearly embarrassed. Finally, she sighed. "My pension doesn't cover much anymore. Medical bills, rent, it adds up. I never thought I'd be in this position. But here I am selling old books and tutoring when I can, just to keep the lights on." Trump was silent for a moment, taking in her words. This was a woman who had dedicated her life to educating others, now struggling to make ends meet. It didn't sit right with him. "What's your name?" he asked. "Margaret," she replied. "Margaret Collins." "Well, Margaret," Trump said, leaning forward, "let me ask you something. Did you ever think, while you were teaching all those kids, that one of them might end up changing the world?" Margaret tilted her head, confused. "I suppose I hoped so. Isn't that what every teacher hopes for?" Trump nodded. "Exactly. You planted seeds, Margaret. Seeds that grew into the future leaders of this country. And yet here you are, struggling. That doesn't sit right with me." Before Margaret could respond, Trump pulled out his phone. "Margaret, give me a moment," he said, dialing a number. "Mr. Trump," came a voice on the other end. "Margaret," Trump said into the phone, giving a small smile to the woman beside him. "Not you, my assistant. Listen, I need you to contact the director of the Trump Foundation immediately. We're going to set up a fund for retired teachers in need. And make sure Margaret Collins here is the first beneficiary." Margaret's eyes widened, her hands trembling. "Mr. Trump, you don't have to." "I know I don't have to," Trump interrupted gently, "but I want to. Teachers like you built this country. It's time someone gave back." He turned to her, his tone softening. "Now, Margaret, here's what we're going to do. I'll make sure your bills are covered. You won't have to worry about rent or groceries again. And if you ever need anything at all, you call me." Tears filled Margaret's eyes as she tried to find the words. I don't know how to thank you." Trump smiled, standing up and straightening his tie. "You don't need to thank me. Just promise me one thing." "What's that?" Margaret asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Never stop believing in the seeds you planted," he said, "because they've grown into something amazing." As Trump walked away, Margaret sat in stunned silence, clutching her lesson plans a little tighter. For the first time in years, she felt a sense of hope she thought she'd lost forever. That day, as the city bustled around them, one simple act of kindness reminded both Margaret and Trump that even the smallest gestures can change lives. If you liked the video, subscribe and share with your friends. Have a nice day.